Are you hearing me? May I start? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you very much for your participation at this webinar that will present the secular Brazilian company Folle. I would like to thank immensely the Brasil-Canadá Chamber of Commerce, CCBC, for this indispensable support and guidance. At this moment, I would like to invite the Minister of the Brazilian Consulate in Toronto, Canada, Mr. Ademar Seabra da Cruz Jr. Minister Ademar Seabra is an illustrious and distinguished figure in Brazilian diplomacy and authority on geopolitics, international affairs, trade strategies, especially in Canada. For this moment on, enjoy Minister Ademar comments with greatly honor us with his presence.
That's right, Marcelo. Thank you very much for your generous presentation, and I hope that the introduction and the adjectives that you have used to describe me will help people sell coffee and tea, which is precisely what is at stake right now in this exercise. Thank you so much for your generous introduction again. And as Marcelo also told, we are deeply indebted to the Brasil-Canadá Chamber of Commerce, Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canadá in São Paulo. They are a long-lasting partner. I've been here in Toronto for many years, and we have had the privilege of organizing and taking part in a number of events that they have promoted, and we have jointly engaged in a number of other initiatives. So this is quite well, and this just naming after, besides Marcelo, Felipe is himself, who is the conductor and the chief entrepreneur of this initiative. We also have, I'd just like to mention as well, the CCBC with Claudia Ramos, who hosted us on behalf of the chamber, and which is this partnership that I mentioned. We have working together in close contact and apprenticeship with Paulo de Castro and Paulo Perrotti, the president and executive secretary, respectively. So what I'll do, I understand that I have, I think it's a fair, good amount of time. It's around 20 minutes, and I have to make a kind of general overview and statements about the Canadian market and prospects for introducing and commercializing coffee and tea in all its varieties here. And of course, we can. My intention is to share basically this small presentation, or unpretentious presentation, if I could put it like that, in two different steps. The first one is the market environment, the overall market environment in Canada, is the overall characteristics for those who are willing to have a stronger presence here, to amplify Brazil's coffee presence here in Canada, and the firms involved, and to know basically what are the fundamentals that apply not only to coffee, but several range of sectors. So these characteristics, they are common to whatever other products. And the second part, then, I intend to delve a little bit better on the issue and on the trade and the opportunities that that arise for precisely these two very noble, ancient, and indispensable products in our modern diet, in our modern food behavior and drinking behavior. So that's, I think we are dealing with a product which perhaps could be the easiest in terms of the tradition, in terms of the quality, in terms of the acceptability and insertion in the world market. I don't know, in fact, a single country, a single region, a place in the world in which coffee has not a great acceptance. And Brazil, luckily, we are blessed in terms of having a long-lasting tradition of coffee improvement and coffee production. And little by little, even though we have been through certain setbacks in the past few years and other periods of our coffee tradition, we owe, just I think it's something it's very important to say to our Canadian listeners. We have here a great number of Brazilian firms willing to take part into the Canadian market, and also Canadian representatives, trade representatives from several businesses, which we are quite honored to be here. But just to understand that coffee is more or less the root, the basis of the Brazilian nationality itself. When you see a huge megalopolis like São Paulo now, with spanning with its over 20 million inhabitants. Just a moment. Yes? Okay, that's right. We are spanning about our 20 million inhabitants in São Paulo. It has all the growth and the development and the founding of the city was due to a great extent the great coffee crops and the high quality coffee which was bred in the hinterland of São Paulo first. Sorry, there's a lady here. Would like something? Sorry? And tea, both. Okay. No, sorry, I know she's just telling me that I'm not to forget tea, okay, and I won't forget tea because we're talking about both of them. But in São Paulo, metropolis has to do precisely with the growth and development of São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, and ultimately Brazil in the 19th and 20th century has a lot to do with coffee growing, and which has the impact in the product, in the development of Brazil at that time. So as regards the general aspects of the Canadian market for tea, and this what we see that the participation of tea in the market, it has more or less the same percentage as it follows the evolution of coffee drinking and tea drinking in Canada. They more or less follow more or less the same standards. We have observed that during the current sanitary crisis in the world and the pandemics, we have seen that there has been a kind of a growth, a greater growth of coffee consumption, but also of tea in its modalities of iced tea and infusions in an overall hot tea as a whole. We have around 5% of the market for hot tea, and around 2.5% for iced tea in Canada, and these are numbers that have been more or less steady in the past few years. So there's a kind of a constant and inelastic demand, or a little bit with a small elasticity for the drinking of those products, because of course there is ongoing competition with other beverages besides coffee. We have the carbonated drinks, fruit juices, milkshakes, water itself, including tap water, of course, milk, etc. So, but there's a strong participation of those products in the Canadian market. The thing which is which we can say about the Canadian market in overall terms, the first thing to bear in mind is that Canada, even though is a country with a much smaller population than Brazil, we're talking about 37 million people in Canada, contrary to more than 200 million in Brazil. On the other hand, we have in Canada, the per capita income is quite high. We're talking about almost $47,000 US dollars a year as a per capita income, whereas in Brazil we are 5 times below that. We are around 9,000. So that means that the purchasing power is much greater in Canada, and also the social homogeneity is also greater in terms that there are equal opportunities for everyone to be a consumer, and even more considering a basic product as tea and its infusion, its derivatives, and together with coffee as well. This in terms of market, of course, we see that Canada has a stronger import basis from countries from Asia. Basically, I think it's the same source, like India is a great provider. There's a distinction between teas, which I think that there are, as far as I know, I'm not a specialist in that, but there are only 4 or 5 types of origins and plants which can be considered to be tea. The others are infusions. So it's a kind of classification that must be taken into account when you are selling tea to Canada. So we're talking about the NCM classification index of 210, which is more or less encompasses all types of teas and infusions. And so we have to know in detail what Folle and CCBC and the Brazilian promoters and sellers are in mind when aiming at as entering into the Canadian market. So there are anyhow this trend, even though it's a trend that we have seen that there is not a great modification year after year, if you consider the time series of the past 10 years, when tea is occupying a percentage of minimum 3.5% and maximum 5.5% of the beverage markets in Canada as a whole. We see that the Brazilian tea is only residually present here. So there are many, of course, selling points here. We have seen in many restaurants or some specialized shops, or even the Brazilian community, what we call the native selling points of beverages here, and bars, restaurants, and small business that they have offered this. But of course, it's not disseminated, and it's a matter of doing promotion will be absolutely key. It's fundamental to this to this endeavor. So there has to be a kind of a strategy. And one thing that talking about the Canadian market itself, it's absolutely open. It's if you take a look at the yearly guide of Export Canada and Statistics Canada and Trade Canada, we can see that everything with concerns to tea and coffee enters into the market with zero tariff. So there is no, of course, because Canada does not have the plants, they have to import either the raw leaves, or in the case the green coffee, and import all these products. And then they are either transformed here, or even if you buy it already, it's ready, as it's case the Folle, which is willing to sell to Canadian market the product ready-made. So there won't be any sort of quotas, tariffs, anti-dumping measures, no type of trade barriers, or what we call non-trade barriers as well. So it's a kind of open market. If you take a look at those requisites for export, you see from a basically trade standpoint, there won't be any restriction whatsoever. And but yes, from the regulatory framework, this cannot be, of course, considered a non-trade barrier because it's what we perfectly call a legitimate checking points checking stance that Canada has in terms of certifying the food which is imported and sold here. And as perhaps you have been aware of, the main entity pertaining to Canada, I think to the Department of Agriculture from Canada, is the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, which poses and organizes the requirements for food safety, for food packaging, for information, nutritional information about food, the nutritional composition, chemical composition, things related to it, and I think it applies perfectly to tea in terms of nutraceuticals, functionality, the sort of things that has to be present and correctly informed when willing to sell the product to Canada. Another important point is to mention is that both coffee and tea, and certainly tea, it's high in the mood of Canada, because I think it could be a kind of worldwide trend, but it's very specific, very concrete here, because there is a strong trend towards healthy foods and what we call metabolic performance and staying healthy as a whole. And tea takes part, and coffee as well takes part, has a strong stance in these healthy strategies for diets, for several types of avoiding lots of types of diseases, including neurodegenerative diseases as a whole, the digestive properties of tea, cognitive properties, antioxidant properties of teas. So this is becoming more and more known to the Canadian consumers. So part of the marketing strategy of the Brazilian product, or Brazilian tea here in Canada, has to take into account the necessity to exploit deeper into the favorable properties that certain teas from Brazil they present. And we must also take into account, I have to go through in more detail what the catalog of products from Folle has to offer, but there are lots of varieties from tea that's present only in Brazil. For instance, if you want to go on a diet or a kind of healthy diet involving the component of tea, which is growing because just making a parenthesis here, when you talk about hot tea and the market for hot tea beverages as a whole, we're talking about what we call traditional tea. So we're talking about the black tea, the Darjeeling tea, and two other varieties. I think only four in total that can be considered very properly tea. All the others are infusions, sort of like that. So if you're selling certain kinds of products in the Canadian market, we must take into account that they are very particular to Brazil. They are not present here. So there has to be a kind of awareness raising the Canadian market if you want to sell something different. For instance, part of the dietary habits of Canadians, as long as tea is concerned, has to do with green tea. Green tea is very disseminated, and there's a lot of great market for this when we talk about infusions as a whole. So green tea and white tea will have a great presence in that. And this is not, as long as I know, the stronghold of Brazilian tea production. So we have other sources which are very popular in Brazil. The case of carqueja, which is hard to translate into English. But if you want to sell this type of varieties, and also there are differences about it's not the same case. You experts will know better than I do. When we talk, for instance, the manzanilla, which is something very common from the rest of Latin American world, and erva doce and some other varieties from Brazil, they also can be introduced. But if it's a new product and you're introducing a particular plant, a particular variety from Brazil, of course, it is certain that it has to undergo more detailed scrutiny from the food inspection authorities to, in order to liberate their commercialization in Canada. We also must take into account, well, there are many Canadian importers of coffee and tea. We know that there are, I think, many of them could be, some of them could be present at this discussion today, and they're more than welcome. And we have here at the Brazilian Trade Commission office here together at the Brazilian Consulate General. We have a number of them which with whom we've been in touch, in contact, and they present queries from time to time to us about importing from Brazilian market, from Brazil, and we have, of course, provided them with the relevant information. Firms that import coffee and tea, like Shanty's Tea, David's Tea, the Carioca's Food, it's a very traditional, the brand name is a Brazilian name, with whom we work, and they are ready to import, and they are trade representatives of these products as well. Common Sense, Orange Brown, there are many of them. And also a more detailed list of Canadian importers and Brazilian exporters. They are, from the Brazilian standpoint, they are available at the Invest Export Brazil platform, in which we can find addresses and detailed information about Canadian importers and Brazilian exporters. And also, I think more importantly, we have here the Coffee and Tea Association of Canada. I think both they have a kind of they have a platform in which we have access to all these websites. I think we can send to you and provide to you with detailed information about the main importers. We know that, of course, coffee is, I think, has a proportion of tenfold more consumption than tea in Canada. When we talk about all the points of sale that they are spread throughout the country. But just to mention that the greatest food chain in Canada, which has an important participation of Brazilian capital in that, which is Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons sells tea, and it has 5,000 selling points around Canada and the US. And not only this, but business like Starbucks, Melita, McCafé, which belongs to McDonald's, Lavazza, Nestlé, all of them, they are strong, of course. They're stronger in coffee, but also have a great opening for importing tea. Mentioning, of course, many other details that we will have time to discuss, but just to mention as well that I think that a critical strategy for selling those products, coffee and tea, to Canada has to be the participation in their biggest fairs, in which all attention of the market converges, and all the agents, the trade representatives, the logistic operators, sales representatives, the big retailers, the retailers and the wholesale market, they are present in this. Normally we're talking about, say, hundreds of participants and big importers with all that fit into all those categories, and the main of them is the Coffee and Tea Show, which happens in Toronto. Unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, the one which was expected for the end of November this year has been postponed. I'm not sure if there will be something like a kind of virtual or online a show for presentations or for displaying or virtual digital displaying of products. Of course, we'll reach one day good technology that we can even have a kind of taste exercise through to digital or internet resources. So hopefully, who knows in the future? But of course, it's still a platform, if it works by the end of November, to have a kind of overall view and interaction with the main Canadian stakeholders in this project. So we hope that next year there will be a presential, so we have been through this pandemics, and I think it's very worthwhile to organize a big Brazilian participation. Here at the Trade Commission at the Brazilian Consulate, we are considering a kind of a particular specific event for Brazilian tea and Brazilian coffee specifically, and the different wise from this more global by the Coffee and Tea Show from Canada. And we'll of course disseminate information and mobilize you again and send and invite you and see even if we can count on a governmental official sponsorship for helping share costs, divide costs of the participation of the Brazilian importers, because overall it's a very important initiative, and it's a very important way of becoming of baking Brazilian traditional and high quality products in the Canadian market. Thank you very much for attention, and sorry for the little bit compacted presentation, but there are too many information, and will be available here for discussing with you either in this session today, afterwards in another space, and always throughout the year in being direct contact with the consulate for us to help in whichever aspect of your pretenses and participation in the Canadian market. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ademar. Now, I start with a PowerPoint. It's not too long. All right. Well, at this moment, we would like to introduce you, all of you, a little bit of the Brazilian flavor. Thank you again for everybody that's taking part of this in this webinar. And what do we want to present? Then here, a very short YouTube. I hope you understand exactly what we present. All right, let's go back. Here we are again. Well, in fact, we have been able to show you who you are in the end of this presentation. That's where this is my explanation. Then our agenda is a little bit more about tea in Canada. Of course, our minister gave us all of the most important information. I just want to talk sobre particular information. Tea made in herb, tereré, mate, tea bags, and energy drinks. Well, tea drinkers segmented in Canada is very interesting because average number of cups per week, 8 to 14. We have the heavy drinkers, and in Canada is about 35%. 41% medium drink, individuals who drink 3 to 7 cups of tea per week, and 23% light drinkers. We have around 23%, and individuals who drink 1 to 2 cups of tea per week. And also, tea drinker profile, all tea drinkers in Canada, 55% are female, but the most important is that millennial tea drinkers, and who is millennial? Who are millennials? They are people born between 1981, 1995, ranging age now from 19 to 34 years old. And it's emerging, you know, it's increasing the tea consumption in future generations. This is the most important for us in Canada. Well, a little bit about the history. We know everybody that is taking part of this webinar know China, almost 5,000 years ago, we started the history of the tea. But up to the mid 17th century, all Chinese tea was green tea. Only a few decades ago, they start with black tea. And only recently being on the rise in the United States and Canada. Tea in Brazil, almost a century ago, in 1928, Florindo Folle began his activities in the field of erva-mate in Xaxim, in the west of Santa Catarina. You can identify in the Brazilian map. All right, and about Folle. Well, Folle now in partnership with Lia company, started a journey around the world. Folle has achieved in preserving the Brazilian tea tradition in almost 100 years of history, guarantee the taste of nature and the lightness of a health drink, and that's good for the soul, mind, and body. Here you have some of our diversified family herbs. An electronic folder in English will be available by CCBC to all participants. Here you have just some. And our minister talked about some very particular tea that we have in Brazil. And the tereré is one of them. It's a drink prepared with yerba-mate and cold water, or even cold lemon juice. There are several interesting health benefits, from more energy to the body to benefits for weight loss. For these and other reasons, the drink has become more and more known in Brazil and in the world. But I know in Canada, it will be very difficult to find the tereré. I don't know if you'll find it, but I show you after I finish my PowerPoint how to drink tereré. Here is some of the Folle family, tereré Folle family. Well, the other one, very particular, is the chimarrão. This is a Portuguese accent, you know. It's a symbol of Rio Grande do Sul. It's a Brazilian state. Chimarrão is a legacy of the Guarani Indians. I'm talking about many centuries ago, and always present in everyday life, every day and most of the time, all day long. Also known as bitter or bitter mate. It's synonymous when you have a chimarrão of this hospitality and friendship of the Brazilian gaucho. Gaucho is the Brazilian who was born in the south of Brazil. The chimarrão is for cold weather. And tereré is for summer. It's a tropical taste. Here we have some chimarrão. And also other innovative products that Folle has is we have energy drinks in cans, like natural do mate with coffee, natural do mate with yerba mate, some energy drinks. Anyway, this is health, but with the traditional Brazilian flavor. Many energy and flavor with the genuine Brazilian, and we hope you enjoy. Well, as a summary now, I'll show you also a movie that is also very short. Well, please chat us and ask our folder right now. And also, if you have any question, please chat us, because in the end of our conversation here, will be a pleasure to answer all the questions. Enjoy Southern Brazilian finest tea selection. Delicious organic teas directly from the source, 100% fresh. And send your questions for us if you want. Well, what we propose export to Canada and United States directly to the customer. Another option, export to a Canadian partner to sell our products. And also a Canadian partner who can pack our energy products and sell and make the distribution of Canada tea and all of our selection of natural energy drinks. Don't ask me how many products we have, because almost every day we have new products. Thank you very much. And now I'm back, but before to go to the questions, I'll show you here. This is the tereré. Tereré. Then our minister said, oh,
Brazilian products, if they have gained market, like what we call our cheese rolls, our pão de queijo bread, and our açaí, for instance. They have become very, very competitive because they have been through a kind of slow introduction into the market through the Brazilian community. This is very important to mention as well. We have here in the province of Ontario around 90,000 Brazilian residents, permanent residents. Before the pandemics, adding to that, we had around 100,000 Brazilian visitors. So Brazilian cultural influence, this is growing a lot here in Canada, and I think this will make a difference, because everything that we bring here is with high quality. People appreciate the products that we commercialize here, and engaging the Brazilian community is always a very good strategy for launching the product. First of all, because it's becoming an increasingly important market in itself, and second-wise, that Brazilians, they are in themselves good disseminators and good propagators of Brazilian culture and Brazilian tastes and Brazilian food habits. So I think whatever type of marketing strategy has to rely and count on them. Just this initial comment for you to bear in mind when you consider how to follow this strategy of entering into this market. So I think that Marcelo there are still some questions which have been proposed to us, but before, of course, whoever wants to either by chat or in person have a kind of participation, you're more than welcome. And if not, I still have certain questions that have come here into the portfolio. I'm just spare me some seconds to take a look at the chat as well. There are many interventions and exchange of information and contact details. This is free, good. So I think you can use the chat to also exchange information about yourselves. And I have, I think, a couple of questions. Initially, it has been suggested about Brazil. So yes, I'm not the person to talk precisely, specifically about the prospects for tea or a specific product here in Canada, because I could say to Brazilian food in general, whatever types of things that we produce, they have a great potential. Of course, tea and tereré and mate and yerba and the things that we produce, I think few people also know, but the great yerba mate consumers in Brazil and Rio Grande do Sul, not only Brazil and Rio Grande do Sul, but also the southern tip, southern cone of South America, which is Argentina and Uruguay. They're great consumers of yerba mate and tea, and most of them they come from Brazil. So Brazil provides basically the tea which is consumed in these very traditional neighboring markets and countries. And but here in Canada, of course, there are whatever can be said about Brazilian food products, they have with specificity. So we can talk about grains, we can talk about rice, we can talk about Brazilian meats, we can talk about Brazilian soya, we can talk about corn, about processed foods, about food technology, about coffee itself, and of course, certainly tea. So, we have here a very important participation and opportunities in several phases and aspects of the supply chain. Coming from the raw product itself, in the case of Florindo Folle, of course, it's much better because not only the presentation, I became very, very well impressed with the quality of the, I haven't had the chance of tasting it yet. I've been here in Canada for many years, but we see that the campaign which has been promoted is absolutely high quality, high standard, and it will fit perfectly in a good marketing campaign strategy. Will fit perfectly in the Canadian audiences and Canadian markets. And but these are which applies to a range of Brazilian products because they are very competitive and they have great quality here. As I told you in the beginning, there's not many problems. There's no problem with coming to the Canadian market. So it's relatively easy. But of course, the Brazilian exporter has to be much well informed. Of course, we have to have a mastery, a domain of the English language or French in order to communicate correctly, in order to read all the details. The Canadians, even though they are transparent and there's no barriers for the entrance of products whatsoever, there is lots of minute details that must be observed, and they are very stringent in terms of food safety, in terms of food quality. And of course, we can comply. We in Brazil, we certainly comply that. But but as we comply, we don't know if we communicate that. And we have here in the consulate undergone certain problems with Brazilian exporters because sometimes they do not comply with certain basic and very elementary and easy regulations, which are clearly stated. But when processing that in Brazil, it's not observed. Marcelo mentioned something quite well in his presentation, the last point, about how to sell the product tea from Brazil, and the latest modality, which is to sell parts semi-processed, and here being processed in Canada. This is also an alternative. This was precisely the strategy which has been followed by acai, which is very successful. Even in winter, it has a very great market here. And also, of course, you have the opportunity of reselling or entering in a more easy way to the Canadian market. So when you come here, of course, it's the first challenge, one thing at a time. You cannot try to do everything at once. But once you are in the Canadian market, you're established, you have good points of sale, wholesalers, and you have the wholesale points of sale and the supermarkets. And then, of course, you can have the pretension of going forward to the US markets. So there are two general questions here about the overall trade relations between Canada and Brazil. I can make a comment on that, and about knowledge that can be shared about from Brazil to Canada in terms of agricultural technology, food technology. But let me also see. Yeah, just talking about Canadian tea market, competition from other brands and countries. Of course, competition. This is a nice question. There's some here. U.S. companies for more information. Let me just mention about this question. I think it's much important to answer the specific questions, not the general ones. Bureaucracy to release products in Canada. No, so look, this is absolutely, this is a very important point I think I can mention. If I could say this, perhaps is the most important thing. Brazil in the 90s, Brazilian firms, they had a great opportunity. They learned a lot how to export because Brazil has always been a very, say, inward-oriented country. It had been a kind of landlocked country, had few contacts with Brazilian products were not sold. We didn't have good market strategies. This was some decades before. With Mercosur, we started learning how to export and all, and we amplified tremendously the number of firms which started to export. And responding to this question about bureaucracy in Canada, Canada can have a kind of similar role to Brazil in which Mercosur had in the 90s. Why? Because Canada is a very uncomplicated market. There are many enormous, tremendous cultural similarities between Brazil and Canada. We are more or less in the same time zone. Those are languages and cultures which are more easily codified by Brazilian producers and exporters and investors, so communication is much easier, and the requisites, the requirements are easier also to understand. So there's, when we talk about, I mentioned to you the tariff structure of Canada, which benefits tea 100%, so no problem at all. First point. Second point, the bureaucracy for commercialization, very essential, very elementary, no extra difficulties or unforeseen difficulties that we can see in that, provided you have established firm, you have established partner in Canada, you have discussed with your prospective representatives or retailers your marketing strategy. No problem at all. Export facilities. Canada, the export authorities, they work a 24-hour day, Monday, Sunday, Saturday, 24-hour day, and there's no waiting time. So whenever everything, the documentation is correct, all the requirements have been observed, and the merchandise and the equipment they have entered into the ship or plane, whenever they arrive here, most, I could say that more than 95% of all the products, and if the documentation is correct, will be liberated in less than 24 hours. There are very exceptional, absolutely exceptional circumstances when produce is liberated in lasts a week, when there is some certain huge problem or lots of compliance instruments which have not been followed by the exporter. So there will be lots of facilities in this regard as well. So this is a kind of a great learning laboratory, how to introduce a product and how to be competitive and how to be successful in your export strategy, aiming at other markets. Another important thing, the city of Toronto, this applies to Canada, but more particularly to Toronto. Toronto is the only single metropolis in the world, say over 5 million people in the Greater Toronto area, in which more than half of the people, the inhabitants which were born here, were born outside of Canada. They are foreigners. Like myself, we're speaking, most of people who are present, so more than 50% will be outside Canada. This means, and this is a great metropolis, very highly cosmopolitan in terms of the diversity of ethnic diversion, national diversity of all types and kinds you find here in Toronto. So if you have good acceptance in certain segmented markets, this means that it's a kind of a proof of concept for your product to be introduced elsewhere in other markets as well. So this Canada has lots of different functions and additional advantages for selling and negotiating with the country, because it will open potentially doors for worldwide. So this is a kind of world in miniature that you're selling. You're not selling to Canada, you're selling to the world in compacted form, in miniature form. So this is something that has to be taken into consideration as well. So the single factor which has been taken into account, and for this presentation from Marcelo and all the work that the partnership that we're having with the Chamber of Commerce, the Câmara do Comércio, we see, which is quality and competitiveness. We are good in this, but we are, again, Brazilians, they are not good in communicating, they are not good in selling their products, they are not good in finding their correct market strategy, and they are not good in finding the correct partnerships inside Canada, which is essential for the dissemination of their products. So before you come to Canada, it's very important that you have the right partnerships, that you understand precisely, that you have a good mastery of English or French to understand all the specific requirements. We know that the city of Toronto Of course, this is a federal regulation for you to enter into Ontario, but the provinces, they have a lot of autonomy, and it's just a matter of understanding. And what's written there is what is written. There's no hidden conditions, there's no hidden costs. And again, the tax structure is essentially simple as well, easily codified. It's a tax structure that's very friendly in this regard. So when you understand perfectly like this, and you then you have the greatest challenge and the greatest task, of course, will be to ascertain your competitiveness, which one of the questions I have asked about the Canadian tea market. Of course, the teas from Asia, what you call basically from China, from Japan, then from India, from Pakistan, even Afghanistan. So these teas from the Far East, they are popular here because they entered some time ago into a marketing strategy which was successful. And of course, we have much more immigrants. The participation of people from Eastern Asia here in Canada is much bigger than Brazil, of course, so it's something you have to consider. But of course, if you do something right, these are cycles. It's a long cycle of selling and promoting tea from Eastern Asia here. And of course, this is consolidated. And when we begin, even small, but go expanding the market, we have good surprises. Another good success story that we have, besides the cheese roll, the pão de queijo, and besides the açaí foods, we also have a Brazil sweet tea, a Brazil delicacy, which is the brigadeiro, which also came here very unpretentiously and now is expanding. So lots of places you can buy it. You can start seeing Brazilian products everywhere. So we have to do this intelligently. And of course, for that, you can count on the Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canadá in São Paulo, and ourselves here in Toronto. There are many other partners. There are representatives. There are logistic operators as well, something that's essential. And the good thing about tea, it's a non-perishable food. It's a food that has a very uncomplicated regulation. So you find lots of advantage. I would suggest you strongly that start connecting with the representatives here in Canada and see how the market entrance, you can be geared, you can be set for starting your operations here in Canada as soon as the market's a little bit more friendly after the pandemics, or during this transition time that hopefully we will arrive at a much better conjuncture that we hope. I think this is I just took a kind of overall stance on the question that I have read. There are others that came while I spoke, and then I'll leave to Marcelo and have another round from my time, from my side, if you still have time. Marcelo, please.
Thank you very much again, Minister Ademar. It's an outstanding presentation. I have some questions too, but we still have only 2 minutes. One of the questions is, when does Folle intend to start its project with Canada? Okay, we supposed to start in November, but we decided to start right now with this webinar. Then our project is starting today. The other question, what does Folle need to implement its brand of ice and energy teas in Canada? Well, we need a partnership. Okay, we have some contacts, and we hope that CCBC also, and our Minister Ademar will help us in this challenge. Another question is there any interest from Folle to come to Canada for business meetings with real people interested in being partner? Yes, we intend to do that as soon as COVID-19 allow us to do, maybe February, I don't know, February or March, I don't know. Another question is, where can we buy this Folle tea in the world? It's too important to Leah service to bring this excellent tea here also to Lima, Peru. Okay, I will talk with the Folle board, and who knows? We go to Peru and have conversation with you and your team. Before we end this webinar with the Chamber of Commerce Brasil-Canada institutional video, I'd like to thank Minister Ademar, also CCBC, and everyone that reiterate our willingness to continue interacting about the real possibility of bringing our history to Canada and our great potential to delight Canadians with the tea from southern Brazil. Avant de terminer avec la vidéo institutionnelle du CCBC, je tiens à remercier tout le monde et à réitérer notre disponibilité à continuer d'interagir sur une réelle possibilité d'amener notre histoire au Canada et notre grand potentiel à ravir les Canadiens avec du thé du sud du Brésil. Nous pouvons également négocier en français dans d'autres langues. Maintenant, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for all.
Merci à toi aussi, Marcelo. Just before we end as well, some people are asking, or of course they are asking about how the consulate can help. If you could just please take notes. It's available, this information, but I'll just give you the names, my personal email here, institutional email, and also I have a colleague which deals with the agri-food products here at the Trade Commission. Her name is Angela Rodriguez. She's here by my side. She's following this event today. You can feel free to write to trade.toronto at itamaraty.gov.br. BR from Brazil, gov from government in Brazil, and Itamaraty, the name of our ministry, Itamaraty with Y at the end. So trade.toronto at itamaraty.gov.br. And my personal email is ademar.cruz, my first name, and CRUZ, last name, ademar.cruz. The same thing, Itamaraty.gov.br. So very pleased and honored to get your consultations and to keep on the negotiations and dialogue and information exchange with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Marcelo. Thank you so much, Claudia, with us, and Andrés and Clayton, who made this possible on behalf of the Câmara de Comércio Brasil-Canadá in São Paulo. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. And also, if you want to have contact with us, also CCBC is available. Please, you have a lot of doors to knock, right? Now we go back to CCBC for the institutional video. Thank you very much, and tereré for you. Bye.
Great. Bye, Marcelo. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pleasure. We keep in touch. Nice to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you again, everyone. Bye.